This is the third of four examples of implementing iterations with the while loop. This is the example where we're given a vector of letter grades and we have to return a vector of quality points that are representative of the letter grades in the given vector. So this one gets sort of long, so hopefully I'll have enough vertical space here to do this. Once again, I'm going to show this for the for loop so that we can compare it with the while loop. So the for loop is just a duplication of the video I made before. Keep in mind I'm doing this using indexing on the for loop side, the indexing style instead of the direct access. I'm using the indexing style on the for loop side because that's what we're forced to use on the while loop side. So let's start. As you recall, I have a vector called grades and A, B, C, D, and F. And my results vector is going to be Q points, which starts off as empty. I do my for loop for x equals 1, the length of grades, and then I'm going to, in this case we did a switch, and we're going to switch on grades indexed at x using our indexing method or style case A. And there are a couple of ways, as we talked about in class, doing this. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to say case A, this QP, because this is how I did the example before, equals 4. Case B, this QP equals 3. Case C, this QP equals 2. Case D, this QP equals 1. And case F, this QP equals 0. And then I end my switch statement. Then I say Q points equals, and I build my result vector by this concatenation method we've talked about, equals Q points, this QP. I could have done this in every step, but I chose to do it this way, as we talked about in class. And then I end, and then I display Q points. So that's what we've done before. It got a little small there because this is a long one, but we've done this middle part here before. The part I'm concentrating on is how we're converting this for loop into a while loop over here. So let's do that. Let me erase up here, give myself a little bit more space. While loop. So this part's the same. Grades equals A, B, C, D, F. Q points equals this. Now before we enter our iteration, let's note it again. With the while loop, we have to initialize, inspect, and increment. Okay, so we have to initialize our loop variable, which is x equals, we're going to start off with x equaling 1. So that takes care of initializing. Then we're going to set up our while loop, and we're going to check to see that x is less than or equal to the length of grades. Okay, so this is our inspection that we'll do every time through the while loop. Next, we'll start our switch statement as we did before, and we'll switch on grades indexed at X. That's our indexing method. And then we do our case once again. As I said in the last video, this is a good time to try your implementation and then come back to see what I've completed. Equals 4, case B, this QP equals 3, case C, this QP equals 2, case D, this QP equals 1, case F, this QP equals 0. And then I come down here and I end my switch statement. Now, here's the difference. Now I must do my incrementing. So I've got to put an extra line of code in here, x equals x plus 1, and that handles my incrementing. And then now I can end my while loop. Oh, excuse me, I can't do it in my while loop. Sorry about that. What I like to do is I have to come back and do my Q points. I have to add to my my results vector. Now, once all that gets done, which mirrors what I did over here on the for side, once all that gets done, then I come back and do my incrementing of my loop variable, and then I end my while loop, and then I display Q points as I did over here. So go through once again, for loop over here, all that's done for you. In the while loop over here, this is my incrementing. Did it again. This is my initialization. This is my inspection, and this is my incrementing. Initialization, inspection, and increment. Okay. So once again, just for completeness, I'll go through this loop. So we start off. We got grades equal to that. Our output vector Q points is equal to the empty vector. X starts off as 1. X equals 1. We check here. Length of grades once again is 5. Okay. So we start off with that. We switch on grades indexed at X, which in this case is X equals 1. So it's A. We find out QP equals 4. We come down here. Q points equals the empty vector concatenated with 4. So Q points is now the vector 4. We increment in our increment stage here, and now X equals 2. We go back up to the top. X passes this test because 2 is less than 5. We index grades at 2, so now we're looking at B. That gives us this QP equals 3. We come down to the end of our switch. Now we do our concatenation. So now Q points gets what it used to be, which is 4, concatenated with 3. Okay. So now Q points is 4, 3. X gets incremented again, get 3. Go back up to the top. 3 is less than 5, so you go through again. You pass this test, it's true, you go through again. Now you're switching on grades indexed at 3, which is C. We find out this QP equals 2. We concatenate that onto the end. So now Q points is equal to vector 4, 3, 2. X is equal to X plus 1, so X gets incremented again. X is now 4. You pass this test because 4 is less than 5. Grades indexed at 4 is D. D comes down here. This QP equals 1. It gets concatenated onto the end. So now it is the vector 4, 3, 2, and 1. X gets incremented, so now X is equal to 5. You come back up to the top of the loop once again. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is. Switch grades indexed at 5. That's F. F, the switch statement evaluates to 0 because the case F, this QP is 0. So now that 0 gets concatenated onto the end of Q points. And so now Q points is 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And so now you increment X again. X is now 6. You come up here. 6 is not less than or equal to 5, so you fall out of the while loop, and you come down, you exit the while loop, and you come down here and you display Q points. So in the command window, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 gets displayed. And that's how you go through it. I got one more example. I think it's the Maxman example. Same thing. I just do this to give you a chance to let it really sink in. Once again, the for loop over here translates over here to the initializing, inspecting, and incrementing parts of the while. Again, this is the third example of the while loop. We're going to be creating a vector of quality points after being given a vector of letter grades. And so set it up just as before with slate, clearing all variables and clearing the command window. And then let's comment. We're going to do quality points using the while loop. So it starts off just the same. Vector G of grades, grade A, grade B, C, D, and F. Okay. And then we set up Q points to be our result vector that's going to accumulate our values as we go through. Okay. Now, once again, we have our initializing, we have our inspecting, and our incrementing that we have to worry about. So let's initialize our loop variable x again to 1. Set up our while loop and do our inspection. As long as x is less than or equal to the length of vector g, then execute this loop. Then we come down and implement the switch statement, which I don't usually copy paste, but I'm going to here in the interest of time because we've done this several times before. So let's do a copy paste. There's our switch statement. Now, and also let's do the assignment of our quality points. This is the accumulation. Capitalized it. Points equals the vector Q points. Concatenated with this QP. And we talked about and discussed this in class, how you accumulate the vector this way. So all of this block here, the switch and the Q points, is identical to the switch and the Q points over in the for loop. Now what we have to do once we've done our work, so this represents the work portion of our code block inside of our while statement. Now that we've done that, we've got to do our incrementing. So we'll do the incrementing portion here. X equals x plus 1. A little bit more space down here. So now we're ready. Now that we've done the incrementing, we can end our while loop, and then we can display our vector Q points as we did before. Okay. All right. So once again, we initialized, we inspected, and we incremented. The rest of this looks exactly like I could have copy paste all that right over into here. So that part of the implementation is the same, but the contrast is you must do the incrementing, the initializing, the inspecting, and the incrementing yourself. So, okay. So we'll save this. I'll put in the breakpoints. So we can once again see this at work here. It's not letting me do the breakpoints for some reason. Oh, I didn't finish executing the last piece of code. Okay. All right, Let's put the breakpoints back in. Execute. All right, let's watch our variables here. G gets the vector A, B, C, D, F, which we expected. Q points gets the empty vector, and X, our loop variable, gets 1. We go through, yes, 1 is less than the length of G because length of G is 5. We do our switch based on G indexed at 1, and so we jump down to 11, to line 11 where the case is A. This Q points equals 4. We skip to line 22, and we concatenate that 4 onto our result vector Q points. So all that's happening over here in the workspace. I increment on line 24. X gets incremented to 2. We're back at the top. 2 is less than the length of G. So now we're in the switch statement. We're switching now on G indexed at 2, which is B. So we look at case A. We skip out of that. We go down to line 13, case B. This QP equals 3. Line 22, 3 gets concatenated onto our result vector Q points. And so you see now our result vector is 4, 3. On line 24, we increment X. So now X is 3. We're back to the top of the loop. 3 is less than 5. In other words, 3 is less than the length of G. So now we switch on G indexed at 3 because X is 3, which is C. So we don't do the first case, don't do the second case. We get down to line 15, we do that case. This QP now equals 2. 2 gets concatenated onto Q points. So now you see over here Q points equals 4, 3, 2. And then X now gets incremented by 1. So X is now 4. Back to the top of the loop, we pass the test. 4 is less than the length of G, which is 5. We switch on G indexed at 4, which is D. So we don't do case A, we don't do case B, we don't do case C, we do line 17, case D. This QP equals 1. Line 22, 1 gets concatenated onto present value of QP. So now QP equals 4, 3, 2, 1. X now gets incremented. Now it is 5. Back to the top of the loop. Is 5 less than or equal to the length of G? Yes, 5 is less than or equal to 5. We switch now on G indexed at 5, which is F. So we don't do case A, we don't do case B, we don't do the case on line 15, which is C, we don't do the case on line 17, but we do the case on line 19 because case is F. So this Q points equals 0. We go down line 22, Q points gets concatenated, or excuse me, this QP gets concatenated to Q points. So now 0 gets concatenated to the vector 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 here. Now on line 24, X gets incremented by 1, so X is now 6. You go back to the top of the loop. Is 6 less than or equal to the length of G, which is 5? No, it's not. So now you come out of that loop and you jump all the way down to line 26, which now you display Q points. And so when that's executed, Q points gets displayed in the command window, and you see the vector 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 as expected. And then you exit out the code. So that's the Q points example. Once again, you have to initialize, you have to inspect, and you have to increment. The next example we'll do is max values.